I didn't expect an apology, but I didn't expect an email either. It was 2:18 a.m. when I read it. No greeting, no subject line, just words that shattered 13 years of marriage in less than a sentence. I've moved the inheritance into my personal account. It's simpler this way. My name is Gavin West. I'm 46, a commercial architect based in Charleston, South Carolina. And in that moment, staring at my wife's message, I knew I had lost a partner I never truly had. Attached was a photo blurry but clear enough. Melanie standing on a balcony with a man I'd never seen. Sunset in the background. 2 wine glasses. Her face relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in years. I closed the laptop, stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured a glass of water. Outside the window was the stone pathway we built 2 summers ago. I had laid every piece of flagstone by hand while she arranged lavender along the edge. We talked about hosting garden dinners, retirement plans, growing old. Apparently, those plans were now someone else's. She didn't just take money. She tried to take my history, my trust. 6-12-400. That wasn't just a number. It was a legacy from my Uncle Gerald, who raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 13. He worked double shifts fixing cars and drafting blueprints to put me through school. He left everything to me with a single note. Build something that lasts. And now Melanie was trying to rewrite that. The strange thing, I didn't feel broken. I felt clear. This wasn't the first sign, just the loudest one. Pause here. Slow delivery. For months, she'd been disappearing. Yoga retreats had turned into immersive healing weeks. Phone calls that ended when I walked into a room. Passwords changed. Devices locked. She'd started asking about the inheritance casually at first, where the money was, who managed it, whether we should consolidate our finances. I knew something was wrong, so I stayed quiet, watched, took notes. She didn't know the inheritance was in a protected trust structured by Monica Wells, the same attorney who helped Uncle Gerald set it up 20 years ago. She didn't know I had never added her name to anything. She didn't know. I was already preparing for this. 2 weeks before she left for her final retreat, my financial advisor Henry Miles called. Someone attempted to access one of your trust accounts, he said. Used your name. The right digits. But they failed the security questions. I already knew who it was. Then she asked me straight-faced if we could simplify our accounts. Too many passwords, she said. Let's put it all under one login. That's how real partners do it. I smiled, nodded. I'll talk to Henry about it. The next day, I drove to Atlanta and met with Monica. She listened without interruption. Her eyes didn't blink once. Your uncle was wise, she said. The trust is irrevocable. No one can touch it, not even a spouse, unless you allow it. Which you haven't. I asked what would happen if someone tried to fake access. Her answer. That's fraud, and we'll have logs, IPs, locations, times, everything. When Melanie left for Arizona, she barely said goodbye. I may stay longer this time, she said at the door. I need to go deeper into myself. I helped with her bags, watched her drive away. Then I sat down at my computer and opened the shared folder we used for home design ideas. She'd forgotten to delete her footprints. Screenshots. Exported spreadsheets. Banking instructions. Even a whiteboard photo with scribbled numbers. 612, 420% il 489 920 after transfer. Note, expect resistance. Prepare explanation. This wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. Tone softens. That night I slept in the guest room. Not because I was hurt, but because I no longer recognized the woman who once called me home. The next morning I made calls. I didn't send angry texts. I didn't beg for explanations. I didn't even ask why. I already knew. She wasn't walking away from a marriage. She was walking away from a deal that had stopped profiting her. 5 days later, her email arrived. No context, no preamble, just a declaration. I've moved the money. It's better this way. I waited exactly 24 hours. No reaction, no response. Just 6 words. Thanks for letting me know. And with that, the game began. I waited 1 full day before making my first move. No emotion, no confrontation. Just a quiet sequence of decisions, the kind you don't unmake once they're set in motion. First, I forwarded Melanie's email, the one where she claimed to have moved the inheritance to Monica Wells, my trust attorney, and Henry Miles, my financial advisor. I added a single line: documentation requested. Neither asked questions. They didn't need to. They knew what this was. By 10 a.m., Monica had logged the attempted transfers, 3 in total, each blocked automatically. All had originated from an IP address in Scottsdale, Arizona. Melanie had told me she was in Sedona. She hadn't even tried to hide it well. Later that morning, I contacted Daniel Brooke, a divorce attorney Monica had suggested months ago, back when the first cracks appeared, and I wanted just-in-case options. His assistant scheduled a meeting for that same afternoon. By noon, Melanie texted me again. "Did you get my email?" I responded, "Yes." 5 minutes later, she replied, "That's all you have to say." I didn't answer. I left it there. At 2:00 p.m., I walked into Daniel's office in downtown Charleston. Clean, modern space. Glass walls. Quiet. Monica joined by video call. Daniel reviewed the documents Monica had already sent. Screenshots, timestamps, logs of failed login attempts, and Melanie's email, the digital equivalent of a confession. The inheritance was never commingled, Daniel confirmed. Protected by trust, not marital property. She made multiple unauthorized attempts to access it. "What are my options?" I asked. "We file for divorce. Immediately. Cite financial misconduct. South Carolina is not a no-fault state when fraud is involved." I signed before leaving. At 4:30 p.m., my phone rang. "Melanie." I hesitated, then answered. Her voice cold. Not angry, not apologetic, just transactional. "You're being childish." "No, hello, no, how are you?" "This doesn't have to be difficult," she added. "I agree," I said. "Then let's be adults about it. The money is already moved. Fighting it will just waste legal fees." I didn't correct her. Didn't tell her she'd moved nothing. I changed the subject. "Where are you staying now?" She paused, thrown off. "Why does that matter?" "I just want to know where home is, for you." Another pause. I could hear her recalibrating. "Gavin, focus. I've already spoken to my lawyer. His name is David Thomas. He'll send over a settlement proposal. It's better for both of us to keep this clean." I wrote the name down. "That's helpful," I said calmly. "Are you even listening to me?" she snapped. "This doesn't have to get messy." "You've said that," I replied, voice steady, flat. "I appreciate your concern for making this easy." She didn't reply. We hung up a moment later. That evening, Monica called again. She tried 3 more times today, all blocked. One of them matched the same IP from last week, the resort in Scottsdale. "There's more," she added, her tone sharpening. "Last month, someone logged into your shared cloud folder from your home Wi-Fi while you were traveling. They downloaded files containing transfer protocols, account snapshots, and notes." She didn't need to say who. I walked into the kitchen, opened the bottle of 18-year-old Highland Scotch we'd been saving for our 15th anniversary. Poured 1 glass. No toast, no bitterness. Just quiet. Melanie thought she had set the trap. She didn't realize she'd walked right into mine. The next morning, my phone rang again. This time, it was David Thomas, her attorney. His tone was measured but cautious. "Mr. West, I represent your wife in this separation. She's indicated that you're open to a straightforward resolution." That's what she said. "She mentioned you were aware of the financial situation, that you had discussed moving the inheritance into a shared account." A long silence from my end. "Did she show you the structure of the inheritance?" I asked. She provided bank statements, recent ones, dated about 3 months ago. "What about documentation of the trust?" She said confirmations were forthcoming from the bank. I took a breath. "And has she explained the legal constraints of an irrevocable trust, the kind that cannot be touched even by a spouse, especially one with attempted access logged by multiple IP addresses?" There was a pause, longer this time. "She may have left out some of those details. I suggest," I said carefully, "that you verify everything she's given you before proceeding further." "Understood. I'll await documents from your attorney." "You'll have them within the hour." After the call, I drove to Harbor First Bank, where Melanie and I had kept joint accounts for over a decade. I met with Sasha, our longtime branch manager. She pulled our transaction history. Her face shifted as she scrolled. There have been a lot of transfers, she said, starting small. $1,500, $3,200, then growing. The most recent one, $43,000, was 2 weeks ago. Where did it go? She pointed to a string of numbers on the screen. Account at Westerly Credit Union. Not with us. Opened in Melanie's name. I asked her to print the last 6 months of activity. While waiting, I texted Daniel. David Thomas is backing off. You'll have the records today. He replied instantly. He'll drop her by end of week. Back at the office, Daniel reviewed the records. Joint accounts had been bled out, systematically. The new account in Scottsdale was tied to a short-term lease in a luxury apartment complex. The listed occupant, Melanie. No mention of me. Over $201,000 had been withdrawn. She's been planning this for a while, Daniel muttered. I nodded, not even angry, just tired. By the end of the week, Melanie made her next move. She switched lawyers. Her new representative, Philip Barnes, a name that raised eyebrows even in legal circles. He had a reputation, high fees, aggressive strategy, no concern for ethics unless it cost his client the win. Daniel wasn't surprised. It's what people do when they're cornered, he said. They confuse aggression with control. 2 days later, Barnes filed for an emergency hearing. He claimed Melanie had evidence proving our financial decisions had been mutual, that I had agreed at least verbally to the movement of funds. He requested an expedited response claiming emotional distress and irreparable harm. The hearing was set for Monday morning, 3 days away. That afternoon, Daniel and I met in his office. He laid the file on the table between us. Bank statements, digital logs, export history, the apartment lease in Scottsdale, and something new, a notarized letter from Frank, our neighbor. He confirmed under oath that he'd seen Melanie being dropped off several times while I was away by the same man in the photo she attached to her email. Tall, bearded, drives a slate gray Tesla. His name I didn't know yet, but I would. Meanwhile, Monica finalized the forensic audit of the trust. She sent over a comprehensive package, 7 blocked login attempts from various devices, all traced to Arizona. One matched the IP used during Melanie's last video call with me. Another came directly from our home network 2 days before she left. We included it all in the evidence file. Every screenshot, every timestamp, every location. This isn't speculation, Daniel said. This is digital testimony. We were ready. But I wanted one more piece. That evening, I opened our shared drive one more time. Folder Home Projects, Subfolder Renovation 2023. Buried inside was a document she'd written months ago, a planning brief for a retreat space she once talked about opening. What stood out wasn't the design sketches, but the financial projections. On the side of a whiteboard were notes that read, 612, 400 trust amount, legal buffer, transfer costs, launch capital. The math was meticulous. This wasn't a woman confused by her finances. This was calculated. The next morning, my phone rang. David Thomas, her original attorney. Mr. West, I've formally withdrawn from representation. The documentation your attorney provided was sufficient. He paused, then added, she misrepresented nearly every detail. Thank you for the confirmation, I said. One domino had fallen. Later that day, Daniel received a call from Barnes's office. They're requesting a meeting, Daniel said, suddenly very polite. I nodded. Let's give them something to read. We sent the file, every page, and with it a single sentence. My client will attend the hearing if required, but will prefer resolution. The next morning, we received their offer. Melanie would keep what she already transferred from joint accounts. She would make no further claims. I would retain the house business and inheritance in full. They called it a clean break. I called it unacceptable. Counter, I told Daniel. She returns half of what she took. She signs a non-disclosure. I drop the fraud charges. We call it even. Daniel raised an eyebrow. You could go for more. I don't want more, I said. I want closure. That evening, I finally got the name. His name was Darren Cole, ex-investment consultant, now a yoga instructor in Scottsdale, left the financial world to focus on emotional alignment according to his LinkedIn. I showed Frank the photo again. That's the guy, he confirmed. Saw him here at least 4, maybe 5 times. Always late. Always left early. We added Frank's notarized statement to the final packet. Saturday, just before dinner, Barnes called Daniel. "We'll sign," he said. "But we want confidentiality." Daniel didn't flinch. "It's part of the deal. We expected that." Monday morning arrived with an eerie stillness. There would be no dramatic courtroom scene, no angry shouting across mahogany desks, no judge banging a gavel. Just a consultation room, 3 signatures, and the final exchange. I sat in the corner of a muted legal suite watching the sky shift behind tall glass windows. Daniel entered first, calm, steady. He set down a folder, no words yet, just presence. Minutes later, the door opened again. Melanie walked in. She was dressed sharply, a pale gray blazer, loose curls, minimal makeup. Behind her, Philip Barnes, her lawyer, stiff as ever, holding a sleek black folder. She didn't look at me, not at first. She looked at the table, at the documents, at the pen. Only when she sat did her eyes flick toward mine, just for a second, then gone. Daniel began without ceremony. "As agreed, this is the revised settlement." He slid the paper forward. "Ms. West will return $97,000, half the amount taken from joint accounts. She will make no claims against the trust property or business. She will sign a mutual non-disclosure agreement, no public statements, no publications, no interviews, past, present, or future. In exchange, Mr. West waives all fraud claims related to the attempted access of protected inheritance funds." Barnes reviewed the pages. He whispered something into Melanie's ear. She nodded once, then took the pen. Her signature was small, careful, like someone trying to make their mark without drawing attention. When she finished, Daniel handed me my copy. I signed without pause. Then, without looking up, I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a separate envelope. I slid it across the table to her. She stared at it. "What's this?" she asked quietly. "Passwords," I said. "Alarm codes, garage, Wi-Fi, the cloud storage folder. Anything you might need to retrieve what's still yours." She hesitated, then picked it up slowly, holding it like something fragile. Her fingers tightened. For the first time, she looked directly at me. Her voice was soft, less performative now, just tired. It was never about the money. I nodded once. That would have been easier. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. No apology came. Barnes gently touched her arm. A cue to move, to end this. They stood. She clutched the envelope. I remained seated. No final words, no last glances. Just the sound of heels fading down the hall. And then, quiet. Daniel let out a slow breath. "It's done," he said. "You sure you don't want more? You could have pursued the criminal side. She'd be facing charges." I shook my head. "I don't want a courtroom battle. I just want my life back." That evening, I sat in my home office. The silence felt different now, not heavy or empty, but clean. I looked at the final settlement file, ran my finger along the edge, then closed it for good. It would go into the drawer, not to be reopened. Later that week, I called Monica Wells. What would it take to set up a foundation? She paused. "What kind?" "Scholarships," I said. "For kids like I was, who lost parents, who need support." She was quiet for a moment, then replied, "That's what Gerald would have done." We drafted the papers that month. I sold the house on King Street the following spring. Too many echoes in the hallway. Too many paused memories in the kitchen. A young couple with twins moved in. They loved the wraparound porch, the garden, the flagstone path I'd laid. I left the hydrangeas. I moved to a downtown loft, smaller, brighter, closer to the river. I bought less furniture, kept fewer things, and somehow that felt more like home than anything ever had before. 6 months passed. One afternoon, a small envelope arrived, no return address. Inside, a check for exactly $97,000 and a single slip of paper. The rest of what I owed, not just the money. No signature. She didn't need one. The check sat on my desk for 3 days. Not because I didn't know what to do with it, but because I did. $97,000. Exactly half of what she took. Returned without prompt, without legal pressure, without a demand. Just a simple note. The rest of what I owed, not just the money. No signature. No apology. But in a way, maybe that was one. I deposited the check into the Gerald West Foundation, a fund in my uncle's name, a scholarship program for young architects who had lost parents or guardians who knew what it meant to rebuild from zero. The first recipient was a 17-year-old girl from Beaufort County, top of her class. Quiet, but brilliant. Her application essay. I want to design spaces that feel like safety. Monica read it twice. Gerald would have loved her, she said. I agreed. That check, it didn't undo anything. But it became something better than a refund. It became the seed for someone else's future. That evening, I walked to the Charleston riverfront. The wind was warm. The air smelled like old wood and ocean salt. I sat on the bench where Melanie and I once dreamed aloud about opening a joint space, a wellness studio with my design, her brand. That dream had died long before the marriage did. We just hadn't admitted it. I watched the cargo ship slide along the water. I didn't feel sadness. I didn't feel triumph. Just stillness. The kind that comes after you've let go of something heavy and finally realize you don't need to carry it anymore. My phone buzzed. Jerry, my old college friend and now business partner. Dinner still on for 7, bringing that architect I mentioned. I smiled. Typed. Looking forward to it. It was just dinner, but it felt like more. As I walked home, something struck me. This story hadn't been about money or even betrayal. It was about what you do when someone tries to rewrite your life without you. How you respond when the person you built with starts demolishing from the inside. And you realize they never planned to finish the house with you. They only wanted the land. I got home, changed, grabbed my keys. But before heading out, I looked at the envelope one last time. I didn't save it. I didn't frame the check. I didn't burn the note. I shredded it. Because closure doesn't need souvenirs. At the restaurant, Jerry introduced me to Elena, a structural engineer recently relocated from Seattle. Smart. Grounded. The kind of person who doesn't speak to fill silence but to build bridges through it. We talked about design philosophy, community projects, the way buildings outlive people, but still hold their shape after we're gone. I didn't mention Melanie, didn't mention the divorce, didn't need to. That part of my story had ended. And this was something else. Not a new chapter. A different book entirely. Final reflections, if you've ever been betrayed. If someone ever took what wasn't theirs, not just money, but time, trust, and dreams, let me tell you something. You don't win by proving them wrong. You win by building something they'll never be part of. Something clean, something honest, something built to last. Because revenge is loud. But healing is quiet. And real strength isn't what you take back. It's what you walk away from without losing who you are. Thank you for listening. If this story meant something to you, share it. Not for views, not for clicks, but because someone out there is sitting in the dark part right now, and they need to know it gets better. It gets clearer, it gets stronger, and it becomes yours again. One step, one decision, one foundation at a time.